Big roster changes coming to college football. Let me go ahead and I'm going to read this quickly. And I want all the panel to be ready to pick up if I just start coughing and die here. First of all, here are the changes that are coming with the new NCAA settlement. The 85 scholarship cap is removed. Schools are now allowed to give out up to 105 football scholarships. Football is now an equivalency sport. All sports will be under new rules, but there's no longer a head count sport. It's no longer a head count sport, meaning the school is no longer required to give full scholarships to each player receiving aid. That means football programs can now split scholarships if they choose to, like you see in sports like baseball currently. The 105 roster limit is firm, which will result in many programs having to greatly reduce their roster sizes, which they usually carry about 120, and that endangers a lot of walk-on programs. All right, let's take a look at the next one. From a numbers standpoint, well, let's see here. A wealthy school can just go out and sign 105 of the best players, period. All right, so you can do it that way. A school can opt to go with 95 or 100 scholarship players and then reward a few walk-ons with aid on the back end of the roster. Or a school could choose to be at 85 scholarships and keep 20 walk-ons. It's basically haves and have-nots, how much you spend. Schools can even go below 85 scholarships to try and have a more competitive overall roster by offering partial scholarships to players to spread the money around, potentially saving money to offer more to its best players with revenue sharing. Yes, it's getting ridiculous now. Let's go to the third one. Here's what you got. A number of football insiders talked 24/7 Sports. 2 months ago, I was hearing rumblings that it would be 75 or 85, said a Big 12 general manager. At least it's over 100. It's over what the NFL has in the offseason before they cut it down. I'm okay with that. There has to be compromise. An SEC general manager says it's a sufficient number. I think 105 is solid. You can still practice and withstand some injuries to have a quality practice. But it's not good news for walk-ons. Take a look at this next one here. The days of the walk-on in college football are probably leaving us, says Dave Clawson. He liked to get the ball to people in space when he was here, by the way, in case you haven't heard that. And then a Big 12 GM said, it sucks for the walk-ons right now. A guy busted his ass, and he may be told he might have to go. At the same time, I do think keeping walk-ons who have busted their asses the 90th to 105th spot, pretty good idea. If you're only going to travel 70 guys and you can have 35 players who are malcontents who are not on the travel squad versus guys who've earned it. That's not the end of it. We're going to do 2 segments on this because there are more potential headaches with this, but let me just get your initial thoughts. Like it, hate it, issues that stand out to you, thoughts?
Initially, this is another, Bob, this is another example of college sports turning into the NFL. I like that part whenever you were just reading through what we had, that clip there, the quote. You can pull back some money to save for your higher profile, more talented players to be able to keep them happy. You're not going to just herd cattle of 105 players and say, everybody's equal, everybody gets an opportunity to go out there and play. I mean, let's be frank. If you put this into a Tennessee scenario right now, wouldn't you parcel off a little bit more money to make sure that Nico was happy? Assuming, whatever, allegedly what Nico's making. On top of the NILs, absolutely. I would rather save a little bit of cash than give it to the third string backup safety, whatever it may be. Here's that now general manager NFL tendencies we're talking about.
Bob, you walked on at UT for a little bit. Thoughts on this thing?
I've always thought walk-on programs were fantastic. Because, one, occasionally you find a guy that's really a good football player. I remember
Nebraska used to make a heyday with it.
Tim Stafford, William Blunt kid, went over there, became a long snapper, fantastic. If you couldn't have had a walk-on, you couldn't have done what Tennessee did at the time. I also think that it's not as complicated as some people make it out. I think Tennessee, the big boys, are going to give 105 scholarships. I think that's what they'll do. And if you can't afford to give 105 scholarships, sorry, you're probably not one of the big boys. You're probably not going to be around when the super conference comes.
Well, I do think the rich gets richer.
Yeah, and I think Dabo Swinney actually had good points during their ACC media days about how you will have a lot of frustration, especially when you get to that travel roster. Now you're going to leave scholarship guys behind. Or for them specifically in their 2016 national championship, it was actually Hunter Renfrow, who was a walk-on, caught the game-winning catch to win the national title. You miss out on stories like Baker Mayfield, so at Oklahoma.
Stetson Bennett at Georgia.
Exactly. So when you have this frustration of that travel roster and you have scholarship guys being left behind, they might go to other levels like FCS, but jokingly, maybe Vanderbilt becomes a good team now because those other scholarship guys, are they going to want to stay in the SEC and then maybe go to Vanderbilt? Does it kind of even the playing field when you don't have these walk-ons, do those walk-ons become scholarship guys at smaller schools like Vanderbilt, or does Chattanooga actually become a team that can threaten Tennessee in the future? Leaves up for a lot of questions.
There's a lot as these coaches and programs try to figure out how they're handling it. The middle range programs, there's going to be a lot of hit or miss, and I think you're going to see programs get really destroyed for a while. I mean, if you make a wrong decision and you zig and everybody else zags, you can really set your program back miles. And also, you could wind up losing guys by, I'm going to give you a partial scholarship, but I'm giving him a full scholarship, not taking you on the road. There's just more room for people to be disgruntled.
Absolutely.
It used to be you were on the team and you either got playing time or not. Then it became how much money you're getting. Why is the left guard getting more than me? The right guard came in with this NIL. Now you're throwing another thing into it. And it's overly complicated in my book.
I think what it'll end up doing, it will hasten that sifting we're going through of getting down to, okay, we've got this set of teams, this huge conference.
A super league.
A super league. I think this just speeds that process up.
How do you think it impacts bowl games when you have players that year in and year out are obviously opting out? You see how upset Florida State was when they were going into their bowl game. They had 20-some guys opt out. That's the time when you need your walk-ons. Do you still have that with a 105 scholarship roster?
And I think what's going to happen with that is when all this stuff starts happening, I think you'll see some schools say, you know what, you're playing football here, you ain't opting out of nothing.
All right, we got to catch a break. All right, when we come back, there are still several potential issues that could be coming up with a football roster near you. We'll discuss those next. Come on back. We'll show you the next headaches.